Hello and welcome to WP Roundtable. My name's Jason Crawford, coming to you from Medellin, Colombia. Kellen, go for it.
All right. Good evening, everybody out there. My name is Kellen Mace. I am a freelance web developer from the east side of Michigan. Happy to be on tonight with Rebecca Gill. Kyle?
Hey, everybody. Kyle Maurer here from Jackson, Michigan, developer and co-founder of Real Big Marketing. Really happy to be here. Really excited at episode 25. We are really cruising with the roundtable. I am really, really grateful to be a part of this show, you guys, because it's so awesome to get to participate in awesome interviews with great guests like we have today. I'm really, really excited. I've been looking forward to this all week, the chance to get to talk to Rebecca. So, Rebecca, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about who you are and what you do today. Then we're going to take it back and start asking you about how you got here and learn all about the other things you have to share.
Okay, I'm Rebecca Gill. I'm founder of Web Savvy Marketing, which is a WordPress shop in Michigan, southern Michigan. We do custom WordPress development, so custom themes, full development of websites and builds, and then we have a Genesis theme store that we have. We've been in business for 5 years.
That's fantastic. 5 years. So,
5
Rebecca,
years.
let's step back just a little bit to before, kind of start at the beginning, and tell us about what you wanted to be when you grew up as a child. Let's start there.
Okay, so I wanted to be CEO mommy, but I didn't really know what that was. I grew up in a small town, and I just knew that I didn't really want to work at McDonald's my whole life, and I wanted some type of office job. I went to college and loved psychology, but knew that I couldn't get a job really quick in psychology unless I had a lot of degrees and I was paying for my education, so I was like, yeah, not going to do that. So I ended up getting a major in accounting and never used it. So there's my upbringing through hopes, dreams, and education.
You majored in accounting, really?
Yes, which is funny. I've never done a journal entry in my life, and when I was in college and I was waiting tables, I've had people say to me, they're like, "You're never going to do it. You're way too verbal. You're animated. They're like, you're not an accountant, so just stop now." But I didn't listen to them. I pursued it and got the degree.
You know, accounting was never my favorite subject in college because I got a business degree and I had to take a lot of accounting. I was not passionate about it at all. In fact, I quite resented it the whole time. But I gotta say, it made a big difference when I started my own business to be thinking in those terms.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the checks and balances and that things had, there was purpose to it. And I really, now as an adult, I know that I like a lot of things symmetrical and things have to balance in my life and visually have to balance, which is why, I'm good with the theme development. But I think that started back in the accounting and the journal entry days.
All right. So how did you get into, what was the path that brought you to Web Savvy Marketing?
I was a VP of marketing for an enterprise software company out of Ohio, and I started there doing training and some project management things, and then went into sales, and I would do 8-hour sales demonstrations and presentations to C-level executives, and we could win if we got in the door, but we didn't have any leads. So back then there was no marketing budget, so I taught myself internet marketing so we could get leads, and I taught myself how to build websites on things like NetObjects, and taught myself SEO, so I became really good at SEO, just trial and error and as much research as I could get. And that was my basis. And then when I left that firm after about 7 years, the economy was really bad. It was 5 years ago. We all know in Michigan there was no jobs available. I would check the LinkedIn boards and to see how many pages of jobs were available, and there were like nothing. That was just kind of my guidance on the economy. So the only opportunity I had was to create my own job, which is what I did. So I kind of took that with that basis I had in internet marketing in that niche industry, and I just kind of transferred it over to a horizontal and tried to make it. and it worked.
Good.
So were you using WordPress at that time, or did you get into WordPress at a later point?
So right before I left the company, we built a website in Joomla. We hired it out to another Michigan firm, and we used Joomla for the CMS portion of it for the pages, and they integrated in WordPress for the blog. So I knew Joomla, I knew WordPress, but I did not love Joomla. I loved WordPress. And when I left the company, I didn't plan on going into WordPress. I planned on being an SEO consultant because I knew that's what I knew and that's what I could get business in. And then once I was out and I was helping people with SEO, you couldn't get access to anybody's sites because it was all HTML based, and they didn't have, Joe down the street built their website for them 4 years ago, and they didn't have access to anything. So I started hacking WordPress themes to try to get these people sites, and then I realized that I kind of had an eye for things, although I wasn't a professional graphic designer or anything, but I got it, right? And I got the marketing, I could bring it all together for them, but I was not a coder. I mean, when I say I hacked. Our team does not let me get anywhere near the code these days. I mean, not anywhere close. So, and it's a good thing. I don't need to be near the code. So that's how I got into WordPress. I just knew I could hack it way easier than I could Joomla, and I could try to start on my own and figure things out. And there was a lot of resources available even back then. It's not like it is now where there's just tons and tons of information, but there was a lot more in WordPress than there was in Joomla. And looking back, I think the stars that I picked WordPress over Joomla. Because look at the growth rate it's had.
Exactly. That's absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think if I had anybody else to supervise me, I don't think anybody would let me touch code either. I don't even allow myself to touch code most of the time.
There's days where I just want to go change a color code. You know what I mean? I just want to do something. I'm like, and I know they would all have a fit, so I don't. I stay out of it.
That's funny. Well, it sounds like you've got a good team.
I do. The team has been with us, so we've got a little less than 10 people, but most people have been with us for years. Chris Cree was my very first call when I went to go launch my first big website and to transfer from the development URL to the real URL, and everything blew up because I didn't understand the MySQL database and the URLs, and that wasn't going to transfer for me. So I did an emergency call, and I just kept looking through Google for somebody who could come and help me at 7 o'clock at night, and he answered the phone. And so we've been kind of together since, and that was, that was 4.5, 5 years ago. You're laughing, but it's true. Everything blew up. Nothing was working. The URLs wouldn't work. The style sheet wasn't showing up. I killed it, and not in a good way.
Wow. So that's really, really cool. So you started website marketing as a service business.
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of services were you providing then, and what kind of clients were you serving and projects were you doing? What did it look like at the very beginning?
The very beginning was IT companies, because my sweet spot where I'm really good is B2B, so business-to-business environment in technology. Because I worked in that enterprise software for so long and I was selling into C-level executives, I knew what they wanted. I knew how to speak the talk. So anybody who was in that industry, once they realized I left, people were coming to try to get me to come and help them, right? So, but it was small, really small companies, where 5 people or 10 people or 20 people. And it was, hacking a WordPress theme for them and doing on-site and off-site SEO for them. So that was the core of what we started at. And then as we grew, I remember the first time Chris was telling me about having a design and a PSD and transferring it into code. I thought it was a magical experience. And then we did it the first time with a graphic designer, and I was hooked. I thought that was just the best thing ever, and I still do. I still think it's a great process, and it's just very creative, and I enjoy it. So we've definitely shifted from that little SEO custom hacking to full developments, and now having products and ongoing customers and things.
So I'm really curious. You're one of the first people I've met who does B2B or specializes in B2B, and
yeah.
I've never done B2B. So how do you see that as different, and what do you consider like a specialty towards B2B?
Here's an example. So when you're selling technology, And if it's typically technology to a business is a large investment, right? I mean, my old software was a $100,000 purchase at least. So you don't sell to an individual, you sell to a group of people and their stakeholders, and they all have different objectives. A plant manager is worried about, something like inventory control and lot tracking and keeping his waste down. The CFO worries about his general ledger and closing quickly on the month end. And the CEO wants to know how much money he's going to save and how many people can he fire because he's got this new purchase, whatever that is. So you have to really speak to those three different pockets, and those are just examples, but differently, right? So you market to them differently, and that's the difference with B2B, is because you're selling into that type of environment with stakeholders, you have to be able to understand the personas of each organization and how they relate to whatever the product or the service is that you're offering them, because you got to speak their language.
Cool. Cool. Thanks, Rebecca. Next, we're going to ask you what kind of services does web savvy marketing offer? We talked about custom development, touched on that briefly, and then also, we heard the word products briefly, but can you expound on that a little bit?
Sure.
What exactly do you offer?
So from a service level, we do PSD to Genesis build. So someone brings us a set of PSDs. We do custom themes where we create the design for them. It's just for them. We build that out into a Genesis theme. We'll do full development, full-blown website for like Michigan State University that got integrated to Ruby on Rails. And then we'll do ongoing things for some people. So, whether it's ongoing SEO for them or just, being their coder on call, that's fine, with us. So those are the service levels that we have. And then we have the theme store now where we have over 35 Genesis child themes that are available for purchase.
That's great. So with all those services that you offer, do you have what's your clientele like? Do you have certain industries that tend to gravitate toward your services, or you do well with? What would you say?
Yeah, so anything that is business to business, we do really well with. We do business to consumer too. We started really small, like a single lawyer office or a consultant, an IT consultant, and it was in the U.S. Now we sell internationally, and it is anything from the guy who's got a finance blog in Singapore to like Michigan State University here in Michigan. So I mean, it's a wide range of customers now. We tend to get pockets of industries, which I think is really weird for a while. Like our current pocket is psychiatrists. We have like 3 builds going on for psychiatrists. Before it was lawyers, and I would have like 3 builds going on for lawyers. I don't know why that happens, but it does. And what I wonder is if like there's an association and someone comes into the association and talks about WordPress and talks about SEO, and then they find us through that. I don't know, but we tend to go in, in buckets.
Yeah, I was going to say it sounds a lot like word of mouth marketing, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, we get a ton of business through SEO because that's what we know, but then we start to get a lot of referrals too. I mean, it's definitely, we've been blessed with that, for sure.
Hey, I've got a quick semi-off topic there. You mentioned that you guys were you started integrating Ruby on Rails with something, and tell me a little bit about that because it's something I've never worked with either.
Yeah.
We didn't integrate Ruby on Rails. Michigan State integrated Ruby on Rails. We just gave them all of the components, and they did the integration.
That seems crazy to me, though. You delivered this completely site based on PHP, and they thought, great, now let's tie in this other language, or
well, it was so Michigan State has a lot of different pockets, and we built one website for them. We're in the process of building 3 more websites for them. But so the individual departments or groups have their own website, and so this particular group is a scientific group, and they have a lot of publications, and all of these publications are in Ruby on Rails. So they don't want to bring all of that in WordPress because it was just going to be difficult to manage because it was already in the infrastructure of the university. So
Gotcha.
most of the websites, WordPress, but it pulls at certain points from Ruby, and then it's got to push the header and the footer back from WordPress over to Ruby, as well as the menu system and the sidebars.
Did your developers have to build that? The exchange of data back and forth that you're talking about?
They built the component. So we built out the footer for them, the footer files, the individual sidebars and the menu, and then Michigan State kind of came in and pulled that. based on what the components that they needed and brought it into Ruby.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, and then they pushed Ruby back in. It was really cool. It was neat to see it come to life.
I think they need to integrate Python. Then I would be happy. We need at least my minimum is 3 different languages.
That's pretty interesting. So you definitely get to be involved in a lot of cool projects. So what I'm really curious about is, and some of the questions that I'm most interested in asking you are really getting your insight on, because you've been doing this for a little while. I consider you to be kind of like, by now, a veteran in the game, an expert with a lot of great experience doing what we're doing, and a lot of us are doing. So the kind of questions I want to ask you are about how things have changed over the time that you've been doing this. You know, how, for example, how has the type of clients you serve changed since you started? You talked a little bit about that. Or, for example, how has the services that you provide changed over the years? You know, what do you do differently now than you did then? Or what emphasis do you place in your business that you didn't when you first started? You know, and that'd be a good start.
Which one? You just gave me 3.
Years. So it's particularly starting with your business. The you serve and the services. How is that adjusted?
Oh, the service. So here's how we've evolved. We started with that SEO component and the builds, and I had a minimum project amount that I would do with people when we started doing the full builds, and then I realized I was missing a large portion of the marketplace, so I started to scale down. Which is kind of opposite, I think, of what a lot of people do. So I kind of had that all-inclusive where we're doing the full design, full build, SEO, putting in your content, and everything else. But I was missing out because there was a lot of people that didn't need it or couldn't afford it. So then I started bringing it down to, okay, well, we won't do all that. We'll just do the custom theme for you. So I could get it to a lower price point. And then, we even scaled it down further to the store, and that's why we did the store products, was because not everybody can afford the services that we offer, but they can afford a $50 theme. That way I wasn't missing out on people. So that's definitely how our services have evolved, and just the type of offering that we have. From the client perspective, what the client wants has changed. So when I first started talking to people and would be in the sales process with them, I would have to tell them they were going to use WordPress because I wanted to use WordPress and it was going to be the right thing to do for SEO. Now people come to us and go, hey, I want WordPress and I want Genesis, and you are great at Genesis and you're good at WordPress, so give this to me. So that sales dynamic completely shifted.
That does sound like a really big shift, to going from you being the proponent for your tools and then now having people come to you because that's what they're looking for specifically. Very, very interesting change.
Yeah, and it's great because it reduces your sales process. I mean, last week I had someone come in and, inquiry form to initial payment on a custom theme was 2.5 days. I mean, that's a great sales process right there. I love that, and it's because they already knew what they wanted. They already reviewed us on the website and our reputation before they contacted us, so they were ready to go. And it's great for both of us because it makes us more efficient.
Yeah, and I'm really happy about that too as well. We started our business a few years ago now and started using WordPress then too. And at the time, it was different. It was like having a consultation with a client. We didn't. A lot of us in the industry were like, we probably don't really even tell our clients that we're using WordPress quite so much. So that's not a selling point. And there's all these misconceptions that people think WordPress can do that. We got to sell it and convince them. And, but now it's to the point like where I get a call, I'm just like, we're the WordPress guys, so you're okay because that's what you're looking for. And they're like, great. That's all I'm looking for, somebody who can work with WordPress.
Well, and someone who will return their call, because I think there's a large portion of the WordPress community, I hate to say this, but like they're either busy or they're working part-time where they don't contact people back, and you can tell, and it's what I always think is funny is when I get an inquiry in and I reply within the first 4 hours, people are always saying, thank you so much for replying. As if it's a gift to them.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just WordPress. I've heard that story from web designers of all.
Yes, yeah, my bad. It's not just WordPress. It's all of us, you know, little nerdy people who do web design and development.
Yeah, all in the same boat. All right, next up here, how about can you outline for us these days, as it stands right now, what would a typical day be like for you, and maybe a few favorite parts of your job?
I herd cats. That is what I do. I herd cats internationally. The team executes. So the only thing that I have to really do is the SEO coaching with people and that strategy. I do QC a lot of things, you know, whether it's the design process or it's the build out of the stock themes. And then I do sales and marketing. You know, I'm now getting myself out into the WordPress community, getting myself out locally, you know, and then managing all of the leads that come in and turning those into sales. So that is my day. I spend a lot of time in Basecamp. A lot of time in Basecamp.
Gotcha.
Basecamp and email and on social media.
It's a good place to be.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what you do in a typical day. How about of that typical day? What are your favorite parts, and what are the parts that you wish would die in a fire?
My favorite parts are the store themes, because it's something that we as a company have design control over. You know, when you're doing custom, you have to adhere to what the client wants, and you can guide them and give them best practices and, you know, tell them, you know, your opinions and things, but the decision's ultimately theirs. When we do a store theme, the decision's mine. And I love that, because then I have that creative power. And I love seeing it, you know, go from concept and where I'm researching it to a live theme sale like we did today. You know, we launched 2 themes within the last 48 hours, and one of them is already sold. So that's great. I love that process. That's makes me happy. What I would rather die than have to do is invoicing and collections. But I do that. We don't have to collect much, but, you know, just I don't like that process. I want money just to fall in my lap. I don't want to have to go ask people for it.
Good luck with that.
I know.
I can totally relate, though, absolutely, and I think all of us can, but I can definitely relate to what you talk about, how being passionate about the theme store and having that control, because it's such a different dynamic going from providing this service to creating this thing of your own, where it's all the questions and all the factors are entirely up to you.
Yep.
And you're not feeling like, you know, you're repeating the same process and not really being able to, you know, have any creative outlet or anything like that. But it's quite fulfilling and addicting, I'll say.
It is. That's why we have over 35.
Yeah. So
I just keep making them.
Then let's. This is really interesting to me, and I've heard you talk about this, and my business partner had lengthy discussions after your talk, just because we thought it was so interesting and compelling. Talk a little bit about why you decided to move into products.
So the story with the theme store is Chris Cree, who's, you know, been with me for a long time, my work husband, said one day, he's like, we should launch some themes for sale. And I just shot him down. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. Why not? I'm like, that's not who we are. That's not what we're going to do. So we waited, and I talked about this in Chicago. So we wait for like a month, and we're on a call again about something on Skype, and he brings it up at the end of the conversation. And again, I say no, absolutely not. So we wait another month, and now this is December of, what, a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. And so now he brings it up again. And by this time, I've had 2 months to think about it, and I finally go, all right, that's not a bad idea. So that was the start of it. I mean, it was really his idea, but he thought we were going to launch with 1. We launched with 4, and now we're up to 35, over 35. So yeah, and like I said, once I started thinking about it and realizing that we could get that lower end of the market who's never going to spend $5,000 or $10,000 on a custom build, but they'll spend $50 on a theme, and they won't like the first theme that they built, that they buy, they'll buy another one. You know, then I realized that was great. It was a market we needed to get into. And at the time, there wasn't much Genesis out there, so we really had a good niche that we could kind of fill.
Cool. I'll hop in next to you, Rebecca. How about just two questions I have for you related to your move into selling products. One is how did you land on Genesis as a framework and doing those child themes? Is it had the developers that you work with, had they just been using Genesis for a while and were comfortable with that, or another reason? I guess we'll let you finish answer that one first. What would you say?
So the very first theme I hacked was a Studio Press theme, and it was their corporate theme.
Yeah.
So the Studio Press forum, God bless those people, kind of taught me how to hack. I would read through the stuff and I'd ask questions once in a while. So they were my basis, right? So then when I started working with Chris Cree, he also liked Studio Press because he knew Brian Gardner. And when Studio Press came out with the Genesis, at that first time it was just a theme. I hacked it. I created like something custom for somebody, hacking it myself. And then when they came out with the framework, we realized that was a really good box to put us in. And when I say box, it allows multiple coders to all work the same way because you have this framework. And then, oh, by the way, it also sets best practices with coding like HTML5 and schema and responsiveness. So I don't have to worry about all of that. I get to worry about the design, and so does my team. And that's why we use Genesis. And I know that they're going to continue to develop it, so I don't have to sit and worry about the technology as much as I can just worry about the design and what might be the next niche we want to go after.
Yeah, that's very cool. One thought I have is how do you market yourself for those themes that you're selling? So I imagine a lot of that, as you already said earlier, is the prospective client who doesn't have unlimited funds and can pay for a custom theme from scratch. You can just refer them to the store, right? To the pre-made $50 themes, whatever else. What about those folks though who, like you said, over the last 48 hours, the two you just launched and have already been making sales on? Mm-hmm. Where are those people coming from? Just are you so good at what you do, and you rank so highly in Google? These people are just finding you through web searches for terms like WordPress theme, or where do you think they're coming from?
Yeah, so it's a combination. So today's sales came from social media because I pushed it on social media, and I make sure I stay active the entire day when we do a launch. And then I follow up with a blog post, and I make sure I market it that way. But the core of our sales comes from organic SEO. And if you look at our store, every theme has a purpose. The first 4 we didn't because I wasn't drinking my own Kool-Aid back then. I just was creating something and winging it. But then once I launched those 4, I realized that they had to have some type of SEO basis. So, we've got themes for accountants and lawyers and chiropractors, and it's really, I have a strategy and everything's data-based. So I come up with a concept of who we might want to build a theme for based on, like, the small town that I go to where my cottage is at, because those people aren't going to be able to afford, those businesses aren't going to be able to afford a custom build, but they do have the time to take a WordPress theme and create their own site. So that's what you see up there. You see, the chiropractor, the dentist, the doctor, the accountant. Every small town has one of those. Every small town's got a PTA, which is the parent-teacher organization for the school. We have a PTA theme. So that's what is the basis, and then I compare that to Google search volume and what's already for sale for those themes, and if I can make something better and it's got search traffic within a certain range that I know that we're good at, I'm going after it, and I know I can get to page 1 on Google within about 3 weeks. And until I get to page 1 on Google, I'm pushing on social media and an email.
Very cool. That reminds me of I saw a great talk on WordPress.tv by Louis Reingold, who's had some success selling commercial plugins, and he talked about some of the affiliate marketing and Google AdWords and a few things he was pushing to get his product out there, but at a certain point said, I stopped a lot of that when I owned page 1 of Google. He's like, I knew that was kind of the stopping point, at least for AdWords, a few of those things, because people, I knew if they were searching for my product by name, they were going to get the entire first page, which he essentially owned. It was either his site directly or other blogs or forums referencing his site. So
we
that's how you want to be, right?
Pay-per-click. Yeah, that's exactly where you want to be. But we don't believe in pay-per-click, and I won't use it. I consider pay-per-click cocaine for marketers. You blow your money in like a month or a week or whatever your budget is, and then you have nothing to show for it because you're done. Where organic SEO, it continues to come over time, and you continue to build it, and you reap the rewards for years.
Very cool.
I'm just happy to hear somebody else using a framework, because these guys give me a hard time all the time. I use Headway, and I exclusively build on Headway, and these guys are always busting my back on that one.
No, we love Genesis. We love the fact that it's a framework. I love the controls that it has in the box. And when someone comes to us with a non-Genesis theme, I feel like I'm going to break out in hives, because everything I know is no longer there. You know, just things like columns that I'm used to, and the author box, and things that are just there, no longer there. And my whole team's like that. You know, if someone comes to us with a theme that they want to customize, most likely we're not going to do it, just because it's just not worth the headache because we got enough Genesis work we can do.
That's something I can relate to for sure.
Yeah. So tell us about your favorite project ever, the most exciting project you've ever done.
I think our work with Michigan State was the coolest, because it was something that my children could recognize. It was my husband's alma mater. And my kids got it. They're like, holy cow, Mom just built a website for Michigan State University. That's so cool. You know, because the lawyer down the street, they don't get that. You know, I mean, they don't really get the concept of people taking the templates and doing stuff with them. So they got that. The thing I was most proud about is the 3 websites that we're doing right now for them. They didn't go through the bid process. They just fast-tracked us through based on our last performance, which that's a proud moment to me, because that's like the ultimate referral, you know, because that is a large organization, you know, for us to be able to deal with, and that was cool. But again, those are the ones that make me happy, though. The theme store projects are the ones that make me the most happy working on.
So about those themes, all of your themes are really, really nice looking. We've been looking at your themes since before I knew you or your company, or that you were nearby or anything. But we were really caught by how nice they looked. So talk about where you get the design and the inspiration for these designs, because I believe you're pretty involved in that.
I am. So I get the idea from the small town, and then what I do is, so if I decide that we're going to build a theme for, a chiropractor or a lawyer, I start looking at what lawyers and chiropractors are using on their websites, and I'll Google towns, throughout the country, and I look at their websites and I say, okay, well, they have these, 10 elements on their homepage, so we need to have those 10 elements. Then I come up with a concept of content placement, and I give it to our graphic designer, and then Carla and I work through the process of iterations just like we would do with a client, but in this situation, she builds it and I'm the client. We go back and forth, and that's how we create it. And it's a great process. It works out well. I've worked with her, I think, for 3 or 4 years. So, she knows exactly what I want. She has a design style that I like, and we work well together. And that's how we come up with them. And I think that's one thing that sets us apart with the themes, is because I do have a graphic designer and a coding team, so it's not just a coder building them, it's an actual team, and there's somebody with design background and education and training doing the design. I think that makes a difference.
Yeah. So next one we have for you is, if you weren't working at Website Savvy Marketing, what would you be doing?
I'd like to say retired, but that's not the case. I would be doing sales or marketing for B2B technology. I can't get away from it. This always comes back to me.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know, really, not so fun, huh?
Yeah, I don't know how I would answer that question. If I wasn't at Real Big Marketing, I'd be at Real Big Marketing. That's who I am. That's what I do.
I would start it.
Yeah.
If I didn't start it, I would.
I never thought that I was going to start a company. I mean, I never grew up saying, hey, I'm going to do this. I just kind of fell into this because it was the only option at the time, and just hoped it would work. And I remember my husband said, well, how are you going to live? How are you going to get stuff in? I go, I'm just going to blog. I'm going to write. I'm going to be on social media, and, it'll happen. And I kind of had faith that it did, and we winged it.
Wow.
What advice would you give other people in your niche, in the premium theme niche?
Okay, so one piece of advice. If you can't figure out a way to differentiate your product and yourself, don't do it. There's way too much saturation with themes and just generic themes. You know, and a lot of people will go and say and market their themes where this is a flexible theme, and that's their marketing. You know, there's no focus on it. So if you can't set yourself apart from the rest of the pack, don't do it. And it could even be headway. You know, you're picking a framework, or you're picking a vertical industry, something so that you're different. Because if you can't, there's no way that you can compete on Google or in social media, or, you know, in the hundreds of themes or thousands of themes on ThemeForest. That would be my first advice. My second advice is know what you're not good at and hire it out. You know I'm good at the conceptual part of things and the research and the data and the SEO. I know I'm not good at design. I need to have Carla do that because, you know, that's her talent skill.
That's really good advice.
Yeah.
I really like that. So, what does you've been in the theme market for a little while now. How long? When did you start entering the theme market?
We launched, I think, in January or February, so probably about a year and a half.
Oh, okay. So even in that amount of time, things have been changing. Have you observed, you know, any shifts? Do you think that WordPress theme industry is like kind of moving in certain directions? You know, what's your take on the direction of WordPress themes?
When we first started doing themes, it seemed like I was the only one that was targeting the vertical niches. So I was the only one with the lawyer theme, or, you know, or I was one of few, right? The accountant, the chiropractor. I could get on page one for that stuff so quick on Google because nobody else had them. And people have wised up. You know, whether I've been yapping or other people have noticed or they just figure it out on their own, now there's a lot more niche focused themes. So I think that's a big shift in our industry, in our market. I'm hoping the new shift is going to be where we have better quality themes, whether both design and code, and they cost more. Because it does take a lot of cost and investment to build out a good quality theme.
That's absolutely true.
Hey, Kyle.
No, that's all I was going to say. I definitely agree with Rebecca, and I really hope for the same thing. I think the products in this industry right now are undervalued, and a lot of work goes into them. And I would like to see the dollar value for them go up.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is we get inquiries from other coding teams who say, you know what, we want you to build us a theme so that we can sell it on ThemeForest. And oh, by the way, they want us to do it for them for like $200. I have way more investment in one of our stock themes than $200. I mean, a lot more. And I've, you know, I mean, I'm going to multiply that by 35 plus times. You know what I mean? So people don't have a good grasp of really how much it does take to get that process completed well and launched and, you know, and successful.
Well, you're telling us about where your themes are going. How about your overall business? Do you have a next step beyond the theme marketing here?
I don't, and I should. Yeah, I don't have a 5-year plan, and I hate to admit that, but I should.
Maybe it's not something to be too ashamed of. It seems like you've done very well adapting and taking advantage of opportunities as you encounter them, being a very agile company.
Fumbling through life as we went, you mean?
But as long as your customers don't have to know that, so it's fine.
They don't. You know what? It's funny, and people are very forgiving. You know, I look at the stuff that we did at the beginning, which it was good then, and now it's just not so good because you learn. One of my favorite quotes is from Maya Angelou, and it's, you know, you do, what is it? You do the best that you can with the knowledge that you have, and when you know better, you do better. And that's what I feel like the business has been. You know, I did the best I could and the best I knew when we first launched, and we continue to improve. And now that we know a lot more, I do a lot better with everything. So, you know, I think that for any business to be successful, you have to take that kind of approach.
That's
All right. For the next section here, we wanted to dive into WordCamp, just your experience with those. Can you think back to what was your first experience with a WordCamp, and maybe an experience or two you remember from them?
So I grew Pressnomics and WordCamps kind of in together because they're the WordPress events. So my first big event was the first Pressnomics, which was really good, and I loved it. And I went back to the second Pressnomics. I think if I were to say like what was one that was really cool, it was an experience. It was the second. I think it's the second Pressnomics where I met Chris Lema and Kareem from Crowd Favorite, and you just kind of blended, really liked them, and then I got the bug. I got to really meet people and get to know the person that you see on the internet. And then I went to Vegas right away, shortly thereafter, and then I met Carrie Dills in person. That's something, Jennifer Bourne. You can't replace those experiences, and I think that's something that Pressnomics and WordCamps offer. That the more the community can take advantage of that, even if it's local, the better off they'll be.
So I've seen you speak at least one WordCamp before and watched some of your presentations. Do you have a background in public speaking? Your presentations that I've seen are just so compelling, very well structured, very polished, with a lot of great information, the kind that we talk about after. And I've sat through a lot of WordCamp presentations, and yours we talk about. So what goes into preparing for one of your presentations?
I stew over it for a really long time before I actually even start working on it. And then I go through my slides, I bring in the images, and then I actually review them with my daughter, who's 14, and she tells me what works and what doesn't work. And it's from a different perspective than I would take. I'm doing it, I know it. She gives me that outside perspective, and I think that helps. So when you say it looks polished, it's because my 14-year-old's been there saying, Mom, don't do that. Get rid of that. That doesn't make any sense. I don't know what you're talking about there. So that has helped a lot. My background is, that enterprise sales experience that I had. I did 8-hour presentations to C-level executives demonstrating our software and doing Q&A with people, and you're on for 8 hours. So that was my background. And but then once I launched the company, I got out of it. I didn't speak anywhere. And I kind of got pushed into speaking. I spoke at Grand Rapids State University for a class. I was the guest lecturer. Michigan State asked me to be a guest lecturer for one of their national things that they had. I don't remember what it was called, but it was whatever type of group that I had worked with. I basically did a social media boot camp for their whole association nationally. That kind of got me back into it. And then I wasn't even still going to consider WordCamps. Chris Lema peppered me on Twitter one day about you have to sign up. And then Carrie Dills was doing the same thing. She wrote me into Miami saying, let's go do a joint presentation for Miami together. And then she bailed on me because she had a conflict when they changed the date. And then I was kind of there on my own. And I did it. And it was hard. It was really hard to get up for Miami and speak. I was really nervous. Even though I had done 8-hour presentations to companies and spoke at universities, I was panicked over Miami because it was the first time in front of my WordPress peeps and our industry, and I was nervous. I was really nervous.
Well, I can imagine. The public speaking is one of those crazy things. It's really hard to get used to. It's really hard to get just totally comfortable up there.
Well, and I wing it, Kyle. I wing it. I have my slides, but I don't practice it before I go up. I'll admit that. My daughter asked me that because she went to a local event that I did for. Cisco put it on, and she goes, so how long did you practice? And she was there, and I said, well, I didn't. She goes, what do you mean you didn't? She goes, you're winging it? Mom, you're not going to wing it. And I said, no, I wing it every time. I have the ideas, I've got the plan, I've got the slides, but yeah, I don't ever go through it before I get up there. I just go.
Wow, that's really surprising because the flow of your presentations comes across as you being quite prepared. At least that's been my impression, that you have great anticipation and great consistency and a good flow overall.
Well, thank you. I'm glad I've fooled you.
I've been duped. So,
You've been duped.
How overall, how have WordCamps, Pressnomics, these conferences, and the in-person interactions had an impact on your business?
So before the first Pressnomics, no one really knew me in the WordPress industry. I mean, people outside WordPress knew me, and people in that B2B technology space I was in knew me, and Google knew me. You know, Google knew the SEO in me, but no one in WordPress really knew me. So it took getting out to Pressnomics to kind of get that industry recognition, and then go into the WordCamps and meeting more people. And I think, you know, it's done a couple of things. I have gotten customers from it. I've gotten theme sales from it. I've gotten actual, I mean, I've already gotten a customer from WordCamp Ann Arbor. We haven't even gone there yet. You know, they saw me on the website and they came over and they're signed and we're in design with them. You know, but I think the bigger thing it does is it allows you to connect with people, because you can connect through social media and email and Skype, but you really can't have that connection that you can one-on-one, where you can walk up and give somebody a hug and say, hey, it's so nice to meet you in person. You know, and I think that's something that you can't get anywhere else. I love it.
That's absolutely true. I completely agree. It's had the tremendous impact for us. And, I think you're right. So,
Yeah.
What WordCamps and other events can we expect to see you at in person the rest of this year and maybe next year?
So Thursday I'm doing Genesis office hours with Carrie Dills. Saturday I'm speaking at WordCamp Ann Arbor. Going to WordCamp Vegas, WordCamp San Francisco, Pressnomics, and probably WordCamp San Diego.
That's a busy schedule.
That's through like March though. And if there's a Cabo Press again, I'm going to go to that as well, because that was wonderful.
Okay, so let's move on to like some personal stuff here.
Okay.
What
Deepest,
defines
darkest
success
fear.
for you, personally and professionally?
What was that? Say that again.
Sorry.
What defines success for you, both personally and professionally?
Oh, okay. So I would say professional success is making sure that what we do keeps me happy, the team happy, and the customer happy. If we lose any of that, we're not successful. You know, you got to have a well-rounded body of happiness to keep things moving. And here's an example. We thought about not leaving Genesis. We thought about adding WordPress themes, stock themes, along with the Genesis ones. But we even started down the line, but I realized that if we did that, my team would leave me. It would just be so much from a support standpoint. They wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't be happy. Our clients wouldn't be happy because they wouldn't get the support they wanted. So I think first and foremost, you know, you have to have that. From a personal standpoint, going up north makes me happy. Going to my little podunk town with my cottage and being able to have a Skype call there. I've done a WP water cooler from there. I've had conference calls with clients. Being able to do that when my kids are out kayaking in the lake, that's what makes me happy. I think that's great. And it's freedom. We get freedom from WordPress. We get freedom from being, entrepreneurs and freelancers.
I love hearing that. That's inspiring to me.
All right, I'll dive in next real quick. How about of all the projects you've been involved in, through your company, products and services, and also speaking engagements that we talked about, WordCamps and stuff like that, what would you say you're most recognized or known for in the community?
We're more known for the stock themes. Not so much the custom built. Yes, and this because people talk so much about products in WordPress, so the WordPress industry knows us more by the stock themes and that we do. They know very little about the custom work we do. So I think that's what we're known for. I'm known for being sassy, and being SEO savvy. Those are my things that I'm known for. I think if you ask anything about me to people that have met me, that's something they're going to say.
That's because you're a typical accountant, though.
Yes.
Right. That's a prerequisite, sassiness.
Sassy for accountants, isn't it? I would have gotten fired if they'd been an accountant. Truly, I would have.
You blazed your own trail instead. That's cool.
Yes.
All right. What? I guess we covered this. What project are you most excited about? We talked about MSU.
Yeah, the Jessica theme that we just launched, I'm really excited about that. It's one theme that works with WooCommerce, iThemes Exchange, and WP e-commerce. I am pretty stinking excited about that because not only does it look good, It's really versatile, and it gives people a lot of options, and it's built on Genesis. And that was a labor of love, because that's 3 big plugins to try to get into a stock theme. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, yeah. That's very cool. Is that still a $50 theme, and what's the niche market for that one?
So it's horizontal. It's just e-commerce, but although you could use it for non-e-commerce, I did raise that to $59. I figured I spent so much time developing that and so many resources, we can get $10 more for that.
Yeah. No, very cool. Very cool. Who in the WordPress community inspires you? We've heard a few names, but...
Yeah, so, I mentioned Chris and Kareem for sure. Saeed from WP Beginner, he's wicked smart. So I like that. I like really nice people like Corey Miller. I like sassy people like Jen Bourne. I like people who I've watched transform, like Carrie Dills or Debbie Sorrow, who works with us. You just see these people go from one thing to completely something different over the course of a year and a half, and I find that inspiring. I find all those different types of things inspiring.
Cool.
So we've heard a little bit about how frustrated you'd be if you had to switch off of Genesis.
Yeah.
Right now, I want a good example of how frustrated you'd be if WordPress disappeared and you had to go use another content management system.
Oh, I would cry. I mean, I've touched Joomla, I've touched Sitefinity, I've touched Squarespace. They just don't compare to WordPress. I mean, it would be a bad, bad day. I'd have to actually consider going back to accounting.
Whoa! Yeah.
See, does that not explain it right there? All of it. Just that visual explains it all.
All right, we're getting to the end of the show here. We're in the home stretch, so we have just this off-topic question for you. Describe the ultimate beer or wine. Do you have a recommendation for our viewers?
I like red wines. I like Malbecs. I like blends. My favorite wine is a wine called Bravado, and it's out of Niagara Falls, Canada. And the company name is really weird, but went there, had the wine in Niagara Falls. They told us about the winery. My husband and my son at the time was like 6. We went to the winery. It was his favorite part of my son's, the favorite part of the whole trip, because it was like this big barrel inside the earth that we went into, and that's where they had the wine tasting, and you could buy it. Brought home a case. Love it. Bravado.
Cool. Who else should we interview on the show that you could recommend for us?
I would suggest Jennifer and Brian Bourne. They're a couple who own a design company together in California. He is extremely sweet and smart, and so combined, they work together, they run the business together, they're like a yin and yang for each other. They're really entertaining to listen to and to talk to, in person, and they'd be great guests.
Cool. I think I've heard of them, actually.
Yeah, they're very nice people.
Born Creative, yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Jennifer was going to come to WordCamp this Saturday, but she was unable to attend, if I remember correctly.
She got scooped up by the Prestige Conference.
Prestige Conference. This is a very busy weekend, actually.
It is. So we had her actually, and then she had submitted, and then they came, and they asked her to come, and they sweetened the pot, and so she had to go to that, which I totally understand.
Yeah, I know. Terrible, terrible. There are a lot of conferences going on.
There are.
At once, actually, yeah. So, if people want to meet you in person, they got a great opportunity here in Ann Arbor on Saturday.
Yes.
I know that I've personally told several people you should talk to Rebecca Gill on Saturday at WordCamp. So just know that there's going to be some people walking up to you and say, Kyle told me that I should talk to you.
Perfect. I'm giving my Peacock talk, which is what I gave in Miami, and it's a very personal account with purpose, of my progression and my branding and what I learned along the way of both branding myself and the company in WordPress, and it's a good presentation, I think.
And so now we know that of the many things that you're going to be doing, keeping yourself busy this week, practicing your talk isn't going to be on that list.
Right. Right.
Certainly not. But the good news is my slides are mostly done, and so I get to really wing it in high fashion on Saturday.
It's pretty funny. I thought it was very funny what you were talking about earlier before we went on air about your son watching your videos, your presentations.
Yes, yes. So to the people who are watching, when I spoke in Chicago, that went up on WordCamp TV or WordPress TV, and my 8-year-old watched the entire presentation. Then he didn't just watch it, he took it on his iPad and he flipped it up through Apple TV and he put it on our big screen TV and he sat there and watched it. And then when it got, and it's 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and then it gets to the Q&A and I tell him, like, buddy, you really don't need to sit and watch it. He's like, no, I want to watch it. And then when I spoke in Grand Rapids, when I came home, he wanted to know if it was already on the TV, or the internet, so he could watch it on the TV. And I asked him why he wants to sit and watch it, and he said that he wanted to watch my presentations, and he's going to continue to watch my presentations because when I'm old, he's taking over the business, and he needs to figure out what's going on.
That's hilarious.
Yes. I am not retiring anytime soon, unfortunately, to my son, and he does need to go to college first before he boots me out of the business and takes it over.
But it's definitely a family business, though.
Yes. Well, I think when you are an entrepreneur and you launch something, you do so at the sacrifice of your family. And, we all do it where the first couple of years you give up a lot of things and you work a lot of hours, and it takes a while to be able to get to that where, you can slack off in an afternoon and go to the ice cream place or, whatever you're going to do with your kids. And so they've been part of it. I think the good part of it is they've seen that you can take something from nothing and make something good and help people along the way. And I think that's a good lesson for them.
And certainly, I think that the work that you do, you probably you're clearly very passionate about it, and you get a lot of fulfillment out of the work that you do.
I
do. It sounds like you couldn't really picture yourself doing much else, and so I'm sure children see that and say, "Mom loves what she does." So I'm sure that's something too.
Yep.
Yeah, very cool.
So, Rebecca, I know we talked about a lot of things. Are there any questions that we didn't get to cover that maybe we should have asked?
Not that I can think of. We did talk about a lot. Here, let me ask you something. Do you always drink chocolate milk on your, the podcast, or just tonight?
Oh, that's a great question. It's usually chocolate milk. Sometimes it's a beer, but we have a lot of milk. We get fresh milk from a farm, and it's actually part of a contract with one of our clients. We get milk dropped off in jars, like the milkman, literally, at my porch. So fresh from the cow. So I drink a lot of milk.
You're spoiled.
Quite.
Not the milk, just you.
Yeah, it's really great. It'd either be a chocolate milk or a beer. So we are very, very thankful to you for coming on the show, Rebecca. It's quite a privilege, and I feel like I could come up with so many more questions that I want to ask you. And in fact, the good news is I get to ask you even more questions this Saturday because you're going to be participating in a panel at Ann Arbor, and I'm going to be moderating this panel. So all these questions that I didn't get to in this short hour, they're coming your way on Saturday.
Excellent.
So anybody present will be able to see it then, and later on WordPress TV, everyone else will be able to see how that goes. So check out that. So I think it's about time to wrap up. Thank you again very much for being on the show. I really appreciate you coming by, and I hope we can get you back on the show again someday in the future and hear how the business is going.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate you letting me come on and chit-chat with you for the hour. It's been great.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Rebecca.
Yeah, it's been really great. I got to tell you, we've had some really great guests on here and a couple really entertaining ones, but I think I'm going to have to watch this one again.
It's the sassy. You like the sassy.
Yeah, well, you gave some great sound business advice, and it was and some great, just some really great advice. So I'm going to have to watch this one again, sure.
Thanks a lot, Rebecca.
My pleasure.